'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh, and today I wanted to talk about Godzilla. One of my favorite topics to talk about in my real life and of course here on YouTube. It is 2024 this year, and that means it is Godzilla's 70th birthday. And so I wanted to talk about my 10 favorite Godzilla films. And we do have a new Godzilla film coming out this year, which is great. Just great. It's always a great year when a new Godzilla film graces us on the big screen. So of course, I'm a big Godzilla fan. See the little guy behind me on the wall. I have this beautiful set from Criterion, which has the complete Showa era films. I love this set. I don't love every movie in this set, but I would love if they did this for the other Godzilla eras, because like collecting Godzilla films on Blu-ray is kind of a nightmare. But I do love this set. I love if they did this, particularly for the Heisei era. That's my favorite era. But I will get more into the eras more as we go along. If you don't know what the Godzilla eras are, or you want a little bit more history on it, I did make an entire video, kind of a beginner's guide to Godzilla, which you can go ahead and click that little note above me to check that video out if you haven't, or you want to wait until the video's done. I'll have it linked there as well. But this video, I'll be talking about my 10 favorite Godzilla films. This is a ranked list. Not really ranked. Should rephrase that. This is a list, sure. It's put together 10 to 1. But number 10 is not my least favorite. Number 1 may not be my favorite. This is going in release order. So the oldest one will be number 10. The earliest one will be number 1. It's just a nice way to break it up. And I set a rule for myself that I couldn't put strictly my favorites. I had to include ones from different eras. So I can't just play total favorites, because like I said, my Heisei is my favorite. I couldn't just put a ton of Heisei films on this and not talk about different ones. I wanted to branch out, force myself to include ones from different eras. So if an era is longer, it might have more stuff. If an era is really short, it might only have a couple. But that was my self-imposed rule. Just a nice way to embrace the entire franchise. So with all that stuff out of the way, let's jump into this thing. Of course, we're starting out with the original Godzilla, 1954, Ishiro Honda's timeless masterpiece. A film which embodies the fear of the atomic bomb, one that the Japanese people had to endure for a long, long time. It created a new symbol, a new icon, a new cinematic master, and a character that has stood the test of time for 70 years now, created the biggest film franchises ever. When I talk about I'm talking about 10 movies here. This movie started it all. And there are 61 movies in the extended Godzilla universe that I'll be including in contention for this video. And this one, of course, has to be on everyone's favorites. I would be hard-pressed to find any Godzilla fan that does not include the first one in their favorites of all time. Maybe if they're like brand new and they've only seen the new stuff, then sure, they wouldn't have included the original. But like a fan who has seen everything, who has watched every movie like I have, and they don't include the first one, I don't really know. It's timeless in a way that a lot of films of the time don't really feel that way. Sure, you can look at some of the effects and you can see the datingness era of it. But because it is black and white, and because of the grain and like the deterioration of film over time, it honestly makes it feel like old news footage to me. It makes it feel like this is a real event that happened, and we're seeing these people's lives through like old footage. Sure, remastering has happened over the years to clean up some of those effects and dating, but honestly to me, if you're seeing the film grainy, blurry, filled with all that classic screen tearing issues that come with old film, you're seeing the purest form of how this film, I don't think was intended to look, but how it should look, in my opinion. It's great either way if you want to see it cleaned up, but the original Godzilla is an absolute must. Second film we're talking about here today, Mothra. The only film that does not contain Godzilla in this list. Like I said, the extended universe travels far and wide. In films that, on first glance, you may not even know are included in the universe. Actually, I made a list on Letterboxd years ago when setting out to watch every film in the Godzilla universe that I will include in the description below if you want to go check out every film in the franchise. There are some weird ones, some that maybe you've never heard of before, that connect in weird ways into other branching movies, but I assure you, all of them connect some way, somehow, or, you know, if they're a standalone Godzilla film, that's how they exist. But the original Mothra is different from most other Godzilla films because, I mean, Godzilla's not in it. And this one is a lot more of a tropical feeling. Of course, this is pretty early on in the Godzilla universe. We had the original, we had Godzilla Rage Again, and not much else outside of that. But Mothra was a new icon created for the screen, and she is seen as like a goddess. She's more of a queen. Where Godzilla is a force of nature, a destructive behemoth, she is seen as a lovely creature, one that protects the area around her. And this film is a lot nicer, it's a lot sweeter than something like the horrifying results of what Godzilla can do. Mothra is a much, much more happy film. I do really like this one a lot. It's one of my favorites from the era, and so why it's on this list. Like I said, if you want something a little bit different, you want to still see something, a character that I'm sure you know. If you know Godzilla, you know Mothra. So keeping it in that same vein, this one's absolutely lovely. The last of the classics in the Showa era, we're talking about Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Now, this was a tough choice when figuring out what the last film I should include in the Showa era, which is the longest era. So I'm sure it's why I got that big box set from Criterion. But the Showa era includes incredible icons that have lasted throughout Godzilla's legacy. And one that really, really stood the test of time is one of the later ones that was introduced is Mechagodzilla. Now, it's an interesting twist, his history with Mechagodzilla. Sometimes Godzilla's the bad guy, sometimes Mechagodzilla's the bad guy, and throughout the entire film history, it bounces back and forth. But in this one, is his introduction, and he immediately turns tide in 1975. We get the final entry in the Showa era, which is another Mechagodzilla film. So, of course, the character stuck pretty quickly. We immediately get more of the character. So Mechagodzilla being the icon that he is, I couldn't not include a film with him featured prominently on this list. Breaking into the Heisei era, my favorite era, we're going to talk about Godzilla vs. Biollante, which is one of the stranger films of the Heisei era. Biollante is a new creation of the Heisei era. One of the jewels of the Heisei era is how it's able to reinterpret classic Showa era monsters and put them in a new light. The Heisei era lasted throughout the 80s into the early 90s, so taking characters from the 60s and 70s and being able to update them a little bit, give them better backstories and better effects was a big plus when watching these movies through. Biollante is a brand new creation, and she is something else. Like, this is a very sad creature. It's a very, very sad story about a daughter and her struggles and what her father is willing to do to try to save his daughter, and unfortunately the destructive nature of nature and how you can't control it, and how Godzilla is still just that. He's a force of nature, and this film is incredibly sad, one that I would love to own one day. Like I said, that's why I wish Criterion would make the box set for the Heisei era. I would love that, because this film's incredibly hard to come by, but it is absolutely worth the hunt to try to find down and watch, because it is wonderful. Godzilla vs. Destroyah, one of just my favorites. I mean, all these are top 10, but if I had to whittle it down to top 5, Godzilla vs. Destroyah would still be on this list. The first Godzilla film to make me cry, I believe. It is very poignant in how it is able to take an icon and transform it into something new. Because Godzilla sure is an icon and sometimes an infamous creature in how he's designed and portrayed. About how, like I said, the force of nature. He is not a being of will. He is just a storm. Like a hurricane doesn't have a reason to destroy a city, and Godzilla doesn't need a reason to destroy a city. But this one really characterizes him. It really gives him a lot of fleshed out storyline. It gives him a great interaction with his son, a monster to take down, that something like we've never seen before. Destroyah was wholly new to this movie, has not been seen since, but man oh man, does he leave an impact in his one and only appearance. I adore this one. Again, if you're able to hunt down the Heisei era stuff, this is the finale of that. And one of the best runs of Godzilla. It caps off in the most incredible way. And one film that I absolutely recommend to people to go and check out because I absolutely love it. Breaking into the Millennium era. This one's more of a shaky era, but post-2000, as you can see, the effects have gotten better. We've lit up a little bit, and like I said, even though it's shaky, there's some great highs along with the low lows of the Millennium era, but we're talking about the high highs only. We're going to talk about GMK, full title, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters, All-Out Attack. GMK is the very much easier way to say the title. If you say it, people know what you're talking about. But if you're looking for the movie, type the full title. This one's full of icons. It takes characters like King Ghidorah and Mothra and pairs them up in ways that they've never been paired up before. Like Godzilla is so cool in this. He is, instead of just the epitome of the atomic bomb and an analogy for it, he is instead haunted by the souls of all the dead soldiers of World War II, and that's the force that is propelling him forward. So incredibly darker tone that Godzilla is even like known for. He's known for some dark stuff, but this one really takes the cake. And then, like I said, we have icons aplenty that cross paths, that have never crossed paths before or since. It's a great twist on the franchise. And someone like me, who up to that point had seen the rest of the stuff before it, it was wonderful to see these characters cross paths that had never been able to team up. And the finale to the Millennium Era, Godzilla Final Wars. This was the 50th anniversary for Godzilla. Now, it's the 20th anniversary of that film. This film is big, this film is loud, and this film does not care. They throw almost every reference they can from any returning past, anything before it, any Godzilla, anything. Extended universe, old school Godzilla, new school Godzilla, whatever. They're gonna throw it in this. Any character you can think of probably shows up in this. A small cameo from a film that came out in the 60s that you didn't even think was connected. This is where it comes in. The America Godzilla from the 90s shows up in this one. This has no holds bars in terms of fan service. They wanted a 50th anniversary celebration and they got one. And man, oh man, is it big. And it is loud. Some people may not like it. Some people may be like, this is too much. This doesn't have a coherent plot. This is ridiculous. I'm inclined to agree with you, but I loved it for all those reasons. I watched this film after binging Godzilla films all night one night. I pulled an all-nighter when watching these all for the first time. It took about a month to watch every Godzilla film. And I did the Millennium Era as a big finale. I was like, do I just watch them all in one night? I'm almost done. I'm almost there. Let's just do it. And I did it. And, you know, Godzilla Final Wars comes on my television at 5 in the morning, and like I said, it's loud, and it's impressive, and it is exciting, and it kept me awake, I'll give it that. It is no holds barred, it is a ton of fun. I may have to rewatch it in a sober mindset, not that I was like under the influence or anything, except for the lack of sleep, but wow, this film's something. Shin Godzilla. A film that does not require any previous viewing. Not even the original. The first one that does not require even the original Godzilla to be fully appreciated. 2016's Shin Godzilla. Wow. Hideaki Anno, creator, director of the Evangelion franchise, completely rules this film. He creates a bleak, haunting Godzilla, one that we've not seen since 1954. A film that feels hopeless watching, like how on earth are we going to take this guy out? A complete and utter disgusting beast that, like I said, the Japanese people don't seem to know how to handle. And this film tackles more about the devastating earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear meltdown that happened, much more recent to the nuclear bombs that happened in the 40s. So it's much more topical for the Japanese people. It hits a lot closer to home. Not for me. You can feel it. You can feel it's much more personal. You can feel it's much more recent. Unless they lived through it a long time ago, like, don't remember living through the bomb, but they do remember living through the earthquake, so it feels like a fresh wound being reopened. And Shin Godzilla is something incredible, and to be able to peek behind the curtain and how, like, the faults of the Japanese government and how they're unable to help their people because of all the red tape that they put up in front of themselves, it delves deeper into just a big, exciting monster movie, and it's great at that as well. It's haunting, it's beautiful, but it's just a thrilling watch that I think anyone can enjoy, not even just Godzilla fans. And stepping back from the haunting bleakness, let's talk about an American one. I did promise to talk about every era, and the legendary Warner Brothers Monsterverse is its own thing, and so I have to talk about it, and I'll give the edge to Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think this is the most fun of the Godzilla movies. I think that the original 2014 Godzilla has incredible scenes when Godzilla's in it. He's in it a very small amount, and the 2021 Godzilla vs. Kong is a blast as well. But I think King of the Monsters is the best Godzilla film in the Monsterverse so far. I think the best film is Kong Skull Island, but I'm not going to include a King Kong movie when talking about the Godzilla universe. But King of the Monsters celebrates its history. It's a loving homage to a lot of the characters. Rodan is the first time I get to talk about him in this. King Ghidorah, of course, is in this. Mothra has a great appearance in this. And of course, the big guy is great throughout it. I love the music in this. Film's an absolute blast. If you're an American like me, this may be the only ones you've seen. This may be a good entry point to see it. A lot of Americans don't like to read films, and that's their own choice, and this one's purely English, so go ahead, check it out, watch it. If you love these characters, you love these monsters, and you want to explore further, this may be a great entryway to people like that, so that's why it's on this list. And finally, number one, both newest and in my heart, Godzilla Minus One is, like I said, the newest Godzilla film, my favorite Godzilla film, potentially the best Godzilla film. The greatest companion piece to the original we've had in a long, long time. I think it's a better companion piece than Godzilla Rage Again, which was the direct sequel to it. This film takes place directly after World War II, and not, the following years after the fact. It is a time of great devastation in Japan, a country even, that's trying to rebuild a lost legacy of years and like a war-torn state that they need to like slowly try to recuperate, and then this big monster shows up and just wrecks house. And that's what Minus One means. They're already at ground zero. We have nothing. We're trying to rebuild from zero, and then this monster comes in and destroys what nothing we had. So what a poignant thing for Godzilla to do. He's not felt this scary to me in a long time. Seeing him on that big screen, just being terrified for these characters I fell in love with, to like, I don't want them to die. This is the first time in a Godzilla film where I didn't want anyone in the cast to die. Consider there's been plenty of iconic characters throughout the franchise, and some that I've latched onto. I'm like, I like them. I really like their story. But this was the first time the entire cast, there wasn't one where I was like, it's okay if they're just cannon fodder. Not a one. I wanted all of them to make it through, but it was tough. It was a tough and beautiful time at the movie theaters. Because, like, sometimes I want to go in and I just want to see Godzilla destroy stuff. And, like, he did that. But I'm like, don't destroy these guys, please. These guys are safe. Please, Godzilla, don't destroy them. But it's beautiful. It's amazing. I've talked about it as my favorite film of last year, and I'll talk about it forever, probably. It's an incredible movie that if you haven't got a chance to see it, by all means, go ahead and do so. But that'll about do it for my top 10 Godzilla films. There are others that I would love to include. I could have talked about every film on that 61 list, I'm sure, for a little bit. But other ones that if you're interested, Hedorah is a weird 70s psychedelic movie that if you're into that, give that a shot. Ibera is a big lobster monster that I had a lot of fun with, that has also that beach tropical vibe that the Mothra movie has that I enjoy. Anything from the Heisei era versus Space Godzilla is probably my least favorite. But other than that, Mechagodzilla 2 versus Ghidorah versus Mothra. Like, it's anything from the High Sire is amazing. And then like Tokyo SOS, that pairing of movies with the Mechagodzilla stuff and the Millennium Era is pretty cool as well. Plenty of stuff to see that if you're interested in. Go ahead and tell me, have you seen all the ones I've recommended, and like maybe there's a couple more you're like interested in? Or let me know. By all means, I'll give recommendations out, and maybe there's one movie that you love I didn't mention here. Maybe you're like, you didn't talk about the 98 Godzilla that much. I did mention it. I don't like that movie. But maybe you're a big fan of the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy from the 90s. So, who knows? That's the glory of this franchise. It's huge. It's beloved, and there's a ton of movies to fall in love with. So, let me know what your favorites are down below. And that'll about do it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching. And as always, like this if you like this. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you at some point.